invite each of you to have the opportunity to come and share friends and family alike. And I know Chris and Lance both set the bar very high in their words. Thank you both, very well done. But the family would also like the opportunity for anyone to come to share their heart, just briefly. And then at the conclusion of this time, Brother Bob is going to close us out. So come share. You can come to this mic here, or you can come up to the pulpit mic, whichever is easier.
Rick Smith. Excuse me. Each year in January, I would send Steve an email, and I'd remind him that long before his baseball players would start showing up for spring training, the Gators would actually start playing real games. And it'd be a good idea to get together and map out our plans for the season. So he would do this. We would call a meeting at Starbucks and go there, bring our calendars for the spring and the baseball schedule, and we'd select some Friday evening games that we were going to see. Steve probably was perfectly aware that you can walk right up to a Gator game, plunk down $4, walk in and have the best of seats. But he didn't care because he was going to get the seats that he wanted in advance. And so he would show up at the ticket window as soon as it opened up. On the first day they started selling tickets, and get the seats in advance for those games. He would also use that opportunity to tell the ticket taker that they could be selling a lot more tickets if they would just bother to put a roof over McKeithen Stadium, because he wasn't going to go sit through an afternoon game without a roof overhead. So anyway, I always want to weave in a little something about the planning of this, because part of it has to do with when our spring break occurs. Jane and I usually plan to do something. But a much bigger thing was the annual Hardy spring training tour, where Steve would drag Sandra. At least I always assumed that was the case, Sandra. And he more or less confirmed that, but you never did. On a scientific tour of the state of Florida, where he would visit multiple spring training sites. By the way, I've written most of this up and I've posted it on Facebook. I'll repost it later, so if you want to go to the memorial site, you can live through this again. Anyway, I liken this tour to a scientific expedition, maybe Admiral Byrd over North Pole, or Lewis and Clark, or something of that sort. He was out gathering data, and when he came back, he had a full analysis of all the teams and the season, and he made his predictions. I should have written them down. In the spirit of science, we should have held his feet to the fire on those predictions. But that was all part of the process for him. And he also brought back evaluations of the various minor league training facilities and the food that was offered there and the hotel accommodations that were nearby. And I happen to be a Phillies fan. I think it's fair to say Steve is a Braves fan. But what really separates the way we approach the game is that I love my team, Steve loved the game. And anyway, to get back to our baseball outings, games would normally start at 7:30. He shows up an hour early. Again, you need to realize that pretty much you can drive up and park, and unless there's a gymnastics event, then you're not going to park right away. But you can drive up and park and plunk down your $4 and get in there. But Steve was going to be there early and on time. And so we would be picked up at 6:30 for the game, and we'd get there in time to watch the batting practice and the infield practice as well. After that, amazingly, for two people who really do love watching the game, we just sort of moved into a cone of silence and began talking. And occasionally we'd look up and take in what was going on the field. That was Steve. We seemed to connect on so many areas, and he had taken on the task of being a manager of engineers, which it's going to be hard to say much more without insulting Chris right now, but they're not easy to manage. I had taken a shot at this back in the 90s and was not terribly successful, so I certainly admire what he was able to do as a manager of engineers. I just felt that Steve had a real advantage over me in that respect. His size and his voice were commanding enough that I think most people did what he wanted, just based on that. But one of the things I came to admire about him was that it's not easy to be a man of faith, to make hard decisions about people that actually affect their lives, trying to do the right thing for them, for the right thing for the company. And in his case, for 23 years, he did it in a country that was hostile to his faith. So anyway, that's pretty much it. May was our last game. That was the last time I saw him. Lance came out with this rather than Jane and Sandra. We had a good time. I'd been trying to do some close-up photography, and Steve, of course, had already gone deeply into this. He discovered, living in Saudi Arabia, that he pretty much had to develop this on film. And when he ran into trouble doing this, he established a relationship with a Kodak technician back in Rochester, New York, until he finally worked his way through it. Anyway, he owned the finest Nikon micro lens, and he proceeded to tell me a story about how he and Lance, I don't know if Chris was there or not, were taking a picture of a live desert viper. And well, macro photography requires fairly slow shutter speeds, and so to get the darn snake to settle down, he'd chill it off in ice water. And what was the term? Getting the snake in the proper frame of mind. Anyway, I never did find out if that actually succeeded or not. It was such a good story, it didn't really matter. But anyway, he was full of good stories like that. I'm going to miss him.